All right, so today we welcome Chris Jackson to the show. He's going to come on here and tell us best practices that he uses right now during the coronavirus to really manage his assets. There's just so much to dive into, so many things that we need to prepare for and think about that could potentially change the landscape of how buildings are operated across the country. So dive in, listen closely. He brings a lot of great tactics, a lot of great resources, and a lot of great thought tracks for what should be done and what you should be looking at today to make sure you're maximizing the use of how you're running your properties. Okay, here we go.
Well, let's dive in. I got this recorded to go out a little bit. We'll get this out more from there, but wanted to dive in here, talk a little bit about what you're doing out there to really be proactive right now for your properties, for people that are maybe thinking about how to combat some of the possible scenarios that could come down the pipeline, right? Could be that tenants, this all wash over, everything's fine. That's probably not the scenario, but that's one, right? Other one would be that, this goes on for a couple weeks, but still there's interruption to a number of people out there who are literally living paycheck to paycheck.
Yes.
3, they get some government assistance. 4, potentially they could, in fact, make payment, but they decide not to. 5, maybe they pay some. 6, they just can't make any payments. And now there's that scenario as well. So talk us through some of the mindset right now, some of the talk tracks you've had through your team, if you're able to, and just some of the helping steps that potential operators maybe could look at when faced with some of the scenarios coming out, because that's of course the rent side, but there's also potential on the lender side where there might be some other opportunities there too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the first thing is just to get everybody kind of in the same mindset. When we're moving forward on our properties right now, and Jason, you and I have talked about this, is let's get some knowns out there. Like, we all know wherever your state of your property is in, let's just assume whether it's happened or is going to happen. I think it's nationally now, but you're not going to be able to evict somebody for 2 months, let's say, minimum. Okay. Yeah. So like, you have to go into that mindset. I think sometimes landlords get into a state of like, this is unfair. Just accept it. That's it.
Sure.
Like just know that that's what's going to happen. So knowing that, you have to basically expect an increase in economic vacancy, and that's just a known. Accept it, kick the can, be angry. Now let's move forward. So one of the things, the things that we're doing right away is any sort of CapEx project that is not emergency it's off the table, like shelved. We're not doing it right now. It might even be at the level, we're not doing this on one of our properties, but I would think along these lines if you had something else, which is, sorry, I'm going to call it, if you were going to do like 2 roofs and they were going to cost you 40 grand and you really need to do them, but you can get by spending 7,000 on a whack-a-mole and buys you a year, I'd roll it.
Got it.
I really would. I would just not outlay that kind of capital. Contain the war chest right now.
Are you turning and potentially looking at leasing units?
What's that?
Are you turning units, the available units right now?
Yes, we are turning available units. Like, we have seen that traffic, we're seeing spike in people interested in looking around, but we're seeing a slowdown of people willing to actually move right now. And I think that should be pretty expected right now. But we're actually getting a lot of residents that are supposed to move in for April 1st worried, is their unit still available? Is everything okay? And actually our answer is yes, but we've had to go to some of our notice to vacate that we're going to vacate that unit, make sure they're leaving, because now you have the humanitarian piece of this that says, what are you doing to that new resident that now you want to keep that existing resident? They're not wanting to move.
Yeah.
Keep it occupied, but you have to solve another problem here where you have a resident that wants to move into your community where maybe you don't have the exact unit type. We actually made flexible decision right now. We have a 3-bed available, a 2-bed, a resident that wanted a 2-bed wants to move in for April 1st. Notice to vacate doesn't want to leave. We're keeping, and we're giving the 3-bed for the 2-bed rate.
Got it.
And we're asking, like, just don't broadcast it and like that kind of thing, but like Phil, like create goodwill with a new resident, stay occupied. So in addition to reducing big CapEx items, which I think is pretty obvious for most people, they're going to conserve capital anyway. Yeah. I would say we have just now, it's basically emergency maintenance only.
So that roof scenario, let's talk about that. So you're going to do the duct tape option, understood. Are you waiting a couple months to see if before starting that project, or are you still just going to like, hey, roof's got to be done this year? I don't know how immediate it is, but if you can buy a couple months, are you going to wait for a couple months and then do the duct tape just to give yourself some guidance? Maybe it all clears up and you can do the big one, or are you going into and just saying, still going ahead, I'm just doing the temporary option?
In our scenario, actually, it turned out we didn't need to do the big roof, so we could get away with doing the $7,000 fix. So we chose that. But for somebody that's in the situation that, if I'm getting into the mindset because I've been there, if you have to do the roof in a year or two, but you can get away with buying a year with $7,000 or so, just on fixes. The way I would earmark monies is I would be looking at how do things go in April, reevaluate. How do things go in May? Reevaluate. I actually think I'd probably be not thinking about that.
What are some talks right now with management in terms of collections? Generally, we have a all or nothing on rent. We don't take partial. Sure. We don't do that as a process. Yep. But now going forward, how are you assessing rent?
Yeah, we've actually had a lot of success on the all or nothing, and it really actually we have a property that we own for 14 months, and after instituting that over the last year, in the last 3 months, we've really seen our collections just go down because of that. And right now, yeah, we're gonna adjust that. It's about communication with your residents. You got to draw a bit of a hard line, look for evidence of hardship, but at the same time, though, you got to be lenient that if you see somebody that might be high risk of higher delinquency and they show up with 500 instead of 800, I think you should make the executive move of taking it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. And looking at that, even with the eviction stuff. So evictions do, turn up in 6 to 8 weeks. You have to think about it here. The courts are definitely going to be more lenient than they are stringent, no matter where you are for the tenant base, right? And that being said, do you want to go in there and look to evict 30 people who maybe had hardship that weren't bad tenants that just had hardship, right? So, and then you're going to be faced with higher turn costs, of course, higher vacancy all across. So there's going to be a game, if we'll call it that, or a balancing act of trying to do your best for tenants, right, in a hard time, keep everything operating and functioning, and then now make a good choice about how to pivot when we do start to see the light after all this.
Yes. I mean, we don't have a known right now. So you don't have a known of when it ends. So you have to base your decisions based on an unknown end. So, and listen, we're landlords here. So I know that some landlords are going to hear this, and I've seen a lot of chatter on Facebook. So I want to just address it but if they don't pay rent, I have my mortgage. I get it. Checkbox. I get it. You got to understand where we are in the power pendulum of things. Let's be humans here too. I get it. We got mortgages, everything like that. The properties have big mortgages, but the states have come down, humanitarian crisis, it never unparalleled, jobs stop, checks are coming. Yes, once the checks come, I think you can be, and you can see what kind they are. I think you can be a little more you did receive that 1,000 or 2,000, but that's a little bit of unknown yet when.
And it's gonna be a shocking moment because you got to think about it, right? And we talked about this offline, but tenant gets a check, right? Yes. Doesn't know if they're gonna have a job again. You think their first call is gonna be let me call my landlord and get them paid. It's gonna be quite interesting. But if you look at it, I mean, there's a couple things to the advantage here that maybe we just have to not freak out about. A lot different 12 years ago, right? When they were overbuilding and that we had a surplus of housing. Now we can't build fast enough. There's a ton of housing. So people are literally have to find somewhere to live, and there's just not enough places.
And you need to stand on your ability to and reputation of being a good owner. Hopefully you were. And that is true, Jason, that like you provided a great resident community experience, and that hopefully this isn't the first time that you're starting to communicate. But if you continue that communication, you let them know, like, listen, we're going to work through this together. You know, we are aware that the stimulus bill did just come through and you haven't paid. Like, we're going to note this and add it to the eviction file later. With that, probably we hope won't really be looked too kindly on in the future.
Yeah.
When things start processing. So let's do this together. Like, so, but in lieu of, I don't know, are the checks coming in the next 10 days? I'm not aware of that intel.
No, there's some talk track, and I don't know, but after April, right? So April 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever that means. So we'll see quite a interesting first of the month.
Well, also look, we're preparing for a defensive strategy to handle anything. Like, I think one should be doing these calculations. If you're not, you're not getting into the mode that you need to. You need to go into a place of worst case scenario and then come back from it and see how you go forward. But you should be doing calculations of how much money do you have on hand if nobody pays rent at all.
Yeah. What can we do to be not just defensive right now?
Yeah. So to be not just defensive, you do those calculations to see where you land, and then you try to, I'm going into the mindset of actually, I think we're going to be surprised at our occupancy, economic occupancy. I think with our steps that we've taken with reaching out with the residents, I don't think it's going to be as bad as we think.
What is the talk track then, reaching out to residents?
I mean, just let them know that you're taking care of things, like that safety is of a concern, that we closed down the leasing offices. That's protection against, like you're trying to protect your staff and the residents. So there is no more human-to-human communication at the leasing office. They're still there, so you can get somebody on the phone, but we've closed those down, closed down the clubhouses. You close down those common areas. We, unfortunately, it's sad, but we had to put police tape around the playground. Yeah.
Interesting.
Just as a precaution, try to limit the amount of people coming together, and we have children at the community, so we put that up.
Do you do a marketing spend right now, trying to get tenants in as quick as possible in available units?
So we have two different scenarios on two different properties, which is probably a good example. One, we are so economically occupied that we don't have many non-vacant units. That's a good, but at the same time though, we are marketing and doing it and promoting our reputation out there, keeping the reviews online positive, seeking out positive reviews, because positive reviews have a positive momentum effect.
Sure.
So that when you have a unit that comes vacant, you're going to be at the top of the list, and people look at your community where they want to live. And on one of our other projects, we were in the middle of a big reposition where actually we're in a good spot where we didn't want to actually lease up. We actually wanted to do a lot of the work to do all the units at once.
Yeah.
And right about now, we would like to start leasing up. So what we're doing is pushing out a marketing campaign through a variety of sources. Definitely have apartments.com. We're launching that now, and that's gonna be a pretty high spend for some people. Maybe when you have the bigger units, it doesn't seem so bad, but when on smaller units, it may seem large. But it's like $600 a month for plus 80 units. But we see a lot of traffic come through there, and what we're gonna do is offer incentives. This is an idea for people. We have an idea for both properties, but you have a couple of arrows in your quiver. One being a sight unseen price. Like, here are the pictures. You don't have to walk through. If you do a sight unseen, pass the application, the deposit, you give a concession on a sight unseen, and you have 24 hours to, if you get there and don't like it, you can say, forget it, cool, like I didn't like it. But that, I think, will get more people in the door.
Is that what they're doing?
What's that?
Are they filling out application online?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're getting that all done online. So they're basically getting approved before they come over there, and then on that point, coming, filling out, say I want it, and putting down application fee on that point. They can come over and they can go day one and just say it's almost like the 30-day mattress return, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like a 1-day return, but they were willing to commit. They like the pictures. They fill out the application, they lock it up, but once approved or not, if they're approved, they have 24 hours.
What has been feedback from management company? What has been some of the talk track with management?
So right now it's been mainly in prep mode. It's actually more positive. Like I think that I'm not hearing doom and gloom, really. I know that there are going to be the stories here and there of worry from residents that they're worried about paying. But we'll see when the stimulus checks come, and that might be in time just to make up for the rent. So I'm not sensing the worry yet. I mean, it is 10 days away, which in this timeline feels like 3 months from now.
Yeah, it does, right? Things going so fast. That's why this is an interesting talk, but it's ultimately all the scenarios that we're going to talk through here. It's going to be a combination of something that's not going to be exactly anything. So
yeah, I mean, we might look back at this. I mean, I have no problem. Like if it's 4 days before or 2 days before April 1st, we may look at this talk and be like, yeah, like look at how much things have changed.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's okay. Got to make decisions for today on what you know today. One thing I suggest everybody else do is we were getting really, really efficient at picking the right unit turn. It was called a classic with a pop. And it had like expensive lighting fixtures, paint, two-tone. And for that price, approximately, you're going to fluctuate from condition of unit, but approximately about $1,800 a unit, classic with a pop. And we were getting the best rent pushes with satisfaction from the resident of what they were receiving for that, because the light fixtures made such a difference.
Yep.
However, we're moving forward, and the only thing we're doing right now is just classic. So you can do clean, steam, and paint, depending on the condition of what you're getting the unit in. But on average, you can probably roll that for like $800.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Keep it so the unit is efficient, clean, serviceable. But I'm definitely not pushing premium right now. We had a rent premium program going into place coming up in April. We completely stepped back on that. We walked that back. We're just going in turns, just working on occupancy for, we don't have many, but the 5 units across these 2 properties side by side that are available right now. We're working on just getting them online in classic manner, putting them in rent and seeing what the response is. And you're right, they are still leasing out there. I mean, there's people out there, you did just have, for people that did do their taxes, they just got their refund. There's a number of things that are pushing in that light right now. Yep. So I do think that's going to continue the trends. But it's going to be interesting. I think the shakeout that's going to be super interesting is when we come in there and we come into the point of having the quote unquote the checks go out, right? Is this 1 month? Is this 2 months? Because a lot of these people who maybe are out of job or were sidelined from jobs, if they're not working at the Walmart or the Home Depot or something, what are they going to walk back into? If they were working for the local plumber who hasn't had work for 2 months, I mean, they may not have a job to go back into. So now you
can do some tricks too. Say you have a resident. So also this is going to be where we get to knowns, and we're not there yet, but just keep these in the back of you're keeping it as an arrow in your quiver. You have a resident that has had no delinquency history whatsoever. You can do something like, okay, you don't have to, we're not going to proceed with eviction or just begin the process, even though nothing's going to happen, but we will tack on this rent and amortize it over the next 11 months.
Yeah. And that's exactly right? Just the plans are going to be different here instead of it's just, how can you do it, right? So it might be some point here. So we'll push this in, if they're coming up on expiration, we'll push this to the back, but, with a sign on a 6-month lease or something, just to get commitment from them.
Every owner is going to have to pick where they are on their scale, where they want to do on their property. What is their resident mix? You can have a certain mix of government subsidy too, and right now that shouldn't be unaffected at all. So it's depending on that type of resident as well. So I mean, you may not have to worry about that if you have 70% government subsidy. So you can also do things. I heard a landlord say this, we're not implementing this, but if you see the light at the end of the tunnel and you know when it's going to end, whenever that is, if you want to keep residents and not move out after there could be, we'll see what the dip is. Maybe it's not bad, but let's not assume it's going to be bad. But if you have to go through a dip and you see the end of it, you could say, I mean, you could keep people by saying like month forgiveness. I'm not saying we're doing that, but there are.
Sure.
I mean, there's things you can do to navigate what's going to come ahead. Every owner is going to have to decide where their limit is.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome, man. Any other notes before we jump off this?
Yeah, let me just see if I have any good ones here. Yeah, I mean, I really like if you feel like you have a resident or two that or three that have a good experience with you on how you're handling the situation, I would reach out to them and ask to do a positive review on your resident Google reviews. I think you need to be proactive and ask for that. That's going to help.
That's actually right. So you do want to push out the good word. So we are working with tenants, but you do want that to carry through because that's going to search and that's going to trend faster because everybody's going to have a dip in some capacity and quote unquote is going to be the rebound, right? So you can be defensive for so long, but if you're just defensive, you're going to be stuck in defensive mode and you're never going to get out of a sunk hole. So having
that's right. You could shorten the effects of defensiveness.
Yep. Yeah. You got to play that game, right? Like, it's everybody talks about, defense wins championships, but it doesn't. You got to score the ball, so for that point there, right? Like it's nice to have, but how many championships can we go back to where, oh yeah, it's just defense, not that many. So for that point, we can do it for a certain point and then line it up, all these things here. So going on the classic turns, doing a little punch right there, doing talk tracks with your tenants, doing workout plans to keep them on board so you're not having high turnover, pushing on a marketing plan so you can keep tenants in front of it, having Google reviews from tenants that you've worked with through, walking that through to make sure that's in the game, having a constant talk track to understand really where certain tenants are at and certain tenants aren't, so you can make sure you're doing the right thing across the board for tenants to make sure that it's fitting for a scheme. And then also doing things like if you have a 3-bedroom, but you can lease it for 2-bedroom pricing to get a family in there, you do it, right? So better to have, occupied paying is better than not occupied.
100%. I mean, you're thinking about the difference between something that's like maybe $150 a month, like that you feel like you're giving up. But if that unit goes vacant or you didn't solve another problem, you have $1,000 delta in 1 month. Like Be smart about that.
Exactly right. It's awesome, man. Good. Great stuff. Let's see. We'll talk back in about a week here and see how upside down everything is from here. Maybe everybody gets paid 10 times what they're owed by accident, and then we have the opposite problem.
And also, I wouldn't be shy about reaching out to your loan service providers or your loan holder and just talk through. Like, I just want to be in communication. I'll let you know how things are going. I think everybody's afraid of banks, and you should really be pushing for a relationship with your banks right now.
No, I called my banks and I said, listen, there's no problem. There's no issue. I'm not part of anything right now. I'm just doing this as a courtesy call to understand what you guys are working on and what you're hearing from your side. And they all appreciate the call.
Yeah, man.
You don't want to have a call later like, hey, didn't tell you, by the way, we have this issue. It's better to say, hey guys, we're going through, we know we're going through. Everybody knows what's happening right now. This isn't a surprise. No shock here.
We made that call with 95% economic occupied with $26,000 of unit turns paid for by the property in the month of February with profit, and we still made that call.
Yeah, exactly right. It's better to be in front with everybody and have a constant talk track, so you're not behind the 8 ball when it comes into it and say, hey, by the way, now it's catch up. Why don't you call us before? Oh, just kind of see how it goes. No.
Because think about the loan servicer. If they haven't heard from you and suddenly you're calling when everybody else is calling, they're triaging.
Yeah, it's true. Exactly right.
They're going to answer the call because they'll go back to you and put you in a priority because you spoke to them.
Well, man, to continued health. Here we go. Everybody stay healthy, stay happy. Good times.
Take care, guys.
See you later.